And now getting to even more chaos in the field of law, Rudy Giuliani has a lawsuit against him for some pretty crazy things. Colin, can we get a little bit more on exactly what he's done now?
Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to the C&C Talks podcast. This is season 2, and we're already on episode 17 of the season, Charlie.
Yeah, it's a bit. We're going way faster than we were last year. Just a reminder, it's due every week. We release every Wednesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It's currently Monday, May 15th, 2023, at about 8:40 Pacific time.
Yeah, and another really busy episode this week, Charlie. More playoff action, some indictments, a lot of news in the legal world, actually. And we'll start with some out of New York, where a man who is allegedly named George Santos just got indicted.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we don't even really know if that's his actual name. We'll find out. But the pathological liar known as George Santos has finally been indicted for, I believe, campaign violations.
Yeah, a bunch of violations, mostly campaign violations regarding money laundering and wire fraud, I believe. Mess for him. And Charlie, it's really interesting to see the Republicans, to at least some extent, continuing to stand by him. He already doesn't have committee assignments, but he's not resigning, and other Republicans, or most other Republicans in the House, including Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, are not calling on him to resign or thinking about expulsion right now.
Well, I'll tell you why, Colin. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because they have such a slim majority in the House, and with those far-right Republicans in the Freedom Caucus who are so unreliable at actually compromising with anyone on anything, they need as many votes as they can get. So even if you have a man like George Santos, as unreliable and terrible as he is, for the Republicans themselves, actually, having that vote is so critical for them that they don't care who that vote is.
Well, yeah, we'll get back to Santos in a sec, but on a related note, right, he was the deciding vote, Charlie, in that bill on the debt ceiling. And I mean, the debt ceiling is a whole nother thing going on right now.
Still no deal on that. And we're rapidly rolling towards that June 1st deadline, which was laid out by the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen about, I believe, in mid-April.
Yeah, mid-April. And there are growing calls from the left for Biden to take unilateral action, invoke the 14th Amendment. But so far, Biden has not done that. Republicans very, very opposed to that idea. But yeah, Santos was the deciding vote on that House Republican wish list bill that would raise the debt ceiling. He's a very, very important part of that Republican majority right now. And if he does resign or gets expelled, right, that's a district that Biden won. Republicans, because of Santos, are very unpopular in that district right now. They're not going to win it again.
No, I can't imagine that they would. And real quick, to get back to another point you were talking about, when you were talking about the 14th Amendment, what exactly is the 14th Amendment? What does it state exactly that relates to the U.S. debt?
Well, I mean, the 14th Amendment has a lot of things, but the specific provision about the debt basically says that it is the president's responsibility to pay off the nation's debts, right? And that the U.S. must pay its debts, right? And defaulting on our debts would go against that. In fact, it's not even clear that having a debt ceiling is constitutional. That's just an issue that's never come before the court. It might end up coming before the court in the next couple of weeks. We'll see where that goes. But Charlie, one other thing on Santos's indictment, the bail for that was set at, I believe, $500,000.
Yes, you're correct.
He found the money for that. He got that money from, well, it's not entirely clear, from 3 anonymous donors. What do you make of that?
Yeah, shady. I mean, it's George Santos. Everything involving him is shady. So
Well,
when something's shady involving that guy, there's something going on.
well, yes, I agree with that, but I mean, it could be a whole bunch of reasons. It's not necessarily shady, but we could learn if we learned who those donors were. We could learn potentially a lot about who is backing him because right, he started out with no money. Right, there's a reason these campaign finance violations. There's a reason that he got charged with them. It's unclear how his campaign got funded. So someone's backing him, which means that there's a good chance that he's compromised by someone. We
Yeah.
could learn who that is.
And now getting to even more chaos in the field of law, Rudy Giuliani has a lawsuit against him for some pretty crazy things. Colin, can we get a little bit more on exactly what he's done now?
Okay, so yeah, in front of me I have the full lawsuit. This just dropped a few hours before we started taping this. It's 70 pages long, Charlie. I've spent a lot of time today go looking through this. It is wild. So this is a lawsuit from a former aide of Giuliani's who was also one of his clients because that is a totally normal thing that happens. Aide and client at the same time. She is alleging, well, a few things. First of all, that he sexually assaulted her on numerous occasions. Also, wage theft, unlawful abuses of power, and other conduct. Some of the things alleged in this lawsuit are just, well, sort of shocking, also kind of predictable. Like, for example, that Giuliani and Trump were running a scheme to sell pardons, which is definitely illegal.
Yeah,
That they were selling $2 million for and you get a pardon. That's bribery.
yeah. Not knowing anything about law myself, that just sounds illegal.
Yeah, no, it's very, very illegal. Um, he numerous times coerced this woman, Ms. Dunphy, into various acts of sex, and there's some very interesting snippets from this lawsuit. Uh, Listener discretion is advised here. This is from part 7. Giuliani also took Viagra constantly. While working with Mrs. Dunphy, Giuliani would look to Miss Dunphy, point to his erect penis, and tell her that he could not do any work until you take care of this. Thus, Miss Dunphy worked under the constant threat that Giuliani might demand sex from her at any moment. Even when the COVID-19 pandemic halted Giuliani's ability to physically assault her, he demanded that she disrobe during their work-related video conferences. Not great, Charlie.
No, clearly not great.
Yeah. Some
Is there any?
other details on this is that he attempted to hide um a bunch of the financial dealings regarding her, specifically during his divorce. He was hiding assets during his divorce, which is also illegal. He bragged about this to her. Not great. Another incident, this is line 8. Giuliani also abused his position as Miss Dunphy's lawyer to pressure her into sex. In one instance, for example, Giuliani promised Miss Dunphy that he would give her $300,000 if she would forgo her legal rights in connection with her pending case and F me like crazy. This statement was recorded. And yes, he did actually say the F word. I'm not saying that because we would have to bleep it. Not great there, but then, Charlie, this might be the most disturbing line of the whole thing. Okay, this is line 213.
All right, let's hear it then.
Throughout the workday on November 19th, 2019, Giuliani insisted that Miss Dunphy drink alcohol until she became intoxicated. While Giuliani and Miss Dunphy were working, he initiated aggressive sexual intercourse with Miss Dunphy. Miss Dunphy was too intoxicated to consent to intercourse and did not consent to intercourse. During this interaction, he made a comment that he thought of her as his daughter. The comment was recorded. Miss Dunphy was extremely disturbed by this remark, which was eerily similar to the one he had made on March 4th, 2019.
New York's former mayor, everybody.
New York's former mayor, a former U.S. attorney, a former Time Person of the Year, a former top aide to the President of the United States, was sexually assaulting people and then saying that he thought of them as his daughter, which is not all that surprising coming from the guy who married his cousin. But
Yep.
you know, lot of interesting stuff in that lawsuit. Not looking very good for Rudy Giuliani. But then again, when was the last time that things did look good for Rudy Giuliani? He's broke. He decided to hold a press conference right between a dildo shop and a crematorium. He has had hair dyed rolling down his face. He's farted at a hearing. Not going great for this guy.
No, and speaking on some very similar topics about one, the former president, and two, sexual assault. Donald Trump.
Another one. Donald Trump actually found liable in this civil defamation and sexual assault case against him, found liable for committing defamation against E. Jean Carroll. He has since being found liable actually repeated the defamatory statements, something that we will actually get into a little bit later when we talk about this town hall that CNN held with Trump. But
too much a disastrous response.
Yeah, but also proof that yes, Trump did sexually assault E. Jean Carroll. Did not prove rape. Doesn't mean that there wasn't rape, but did not prove it.
And well, I think
the former president of the United States and the front runner for the Republican nomination for president. Everybody.
I think an interesting question that comes out of this, though, is how does this affect his political chances? Does it?
Okay, it doesn't
affect his political chances.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
No, and that's the crazy thing is that it doesn't whatsoever.
I mean, that's almost unbelievable. If you were to say 10 years ago, it's a guy that was found liable for sexual assault.
And is probably pretty soon going to be found liable of trying to steal an election in Georgia.
Yes, that somebody that is under criminal indictment is the front runner for the Republican nomination for president. That is absurd.
It is. Now let's get back to the CNN Trump town hall that you were getting back to. And oh man, what a disaster that event ended up being. Trump goes on CNN to have this town hall. He spouts lies, election denial repeatedly. He defames Eugene Carroll again, which could lead to another lawsuit against not only Trump, but CNN as well. Just overall, an absolute disaster. CNN's credibility has gone out the window.
Well, and here's a question for you, though, Charlie. Are you surprised? We all knew that what Trump was going to do, right? CNN's argument for holding the town hall, he's the Republican frontrunner. I get that. I really do get that. But also you have to look back to what happened in 2016, right? The reason that he existed in the first place is because the media could not keep their eyes off the Trump show. Now they're doing it again. CNN just, I mean, and frankly, it was a violation of journalistic norms too. They knew exactly what was going to happen up on that stage, and they allowed it to happen, making sure that the audience was filled with Trump supporters. And according to reports, before the town hall, having someone say, let's make the former president, let's make our next president look good. That's not journalism. That's propaganda.
It is indeed another big blow. I believe a few weeks ago during the Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon episode, we were talking about how big news organizations have been taking a hit recently, and this does not help whatsoever.
Well, no, CNN's credibility is in the trash, and over the weekend, Newsmax got more viewers in prime time than them. Newsmax!
Yep, news, air quotes, Max.
Well, sure. But the point is, CNN is a disaster right now. I mean, it feels like Chris Litt, their new CEO, is basically trying to destroy the company.
We will see. Now let's move to the southern border with Title 42 ending. The expected surge of immigrants coming in from the U.S.-Mexico border has indeed happened. So can we be a little bit more on exactly what Title 42 is and why this surge has happened?
Well, so I'd actually like to dispute that for a sec. I think it's too early to know whether we actually are going to have a surge. There were less encounters at the border in the 2 days immediately after Title 42 ended than there were in the 2 days before. That could just be random. I would guess that it actually is just random, but I don't think a couple of days is enough time to actually get a real opinion on that. I think that Title 42 was inhumane. I think that we need better security at the border. I don't think that anyone would dispute that. I think that Republicans will often say, "Oh, the border's wide open. There's been this many encounters at the border," but that's exactly it. Encounters. These people that were crossing illegally were caught. So the border's not open, and I do agree that it's a problem, but it's not one that we just solve by inhumanely turning everybody away. We have to deal
Yes.
with it in a humane way, and we have to start at the origin and figure out why are these people trying to come here in the first place. Oftentimes it's civil unrest or just poor economic conditions or whatever in their home countries. We need to try to do something to fix these problems.
Yes, and for those viewers who are unaware, Title 42 was an emergency health authority signed by the Trump administration in March of 2020, right after the first wave of the pandemic occurred. It allowed the U.S. to turn away immigrants from the U.S.-Mexico border by saying, we don't want to continue the spread of COVID-19, so you will not be allowed into the country.
Yeah, that's the general gist of it. It's a little more complicated, but that
Yeah,
is
but brief
basically it.
overview.
Yeah. Um, no, the border is an issue. Anyone claiming it's not is wrong. It needs to be dealt with in a humane way, though. I
It
don't know
does.
why we're debating that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a debate, and yet it is, as are some other things in U.S. politics. Now let's move to the world stage. Turkey has had a very contentious election. Can we get a little bit more on what happened? It was very close. It is going to a runoff. Erdogan, the current president, did worse than expected. In fact, he didn't actually gain an outright majority due to the opposition party's stronger than expected results. I believe that Erdogan himself gained 49.5% of the vote, and the main opposition leader gained 44.4%.
Yeah, don't ask me to pronounce the main opposition leader's name.
Yeah, we
It's
apologize. We
it's not
cannot
happening.
pronounce your name.
It's not happening. Unless he becomes the new Turkish leader. Yeah, so Erdogan's been becoming increasingly um authoritarian. A good chance here for the Turkish population to kick him out before it becomes too late. It's probably not going to happen. It's really, really hard to beat someone that got 49% of the vote. It's really hard to beat them when it goes to the runoff unless Erdogan's turnout is significantly lower. It's going to be really difficult to flip all of the votes for other opposition candidates. And it's also unclear exactly if Erdogan did get 49.5% of the vote, because that's from his own government agency that is not trustworthy. Other sources are saying that he got a decent amount less of the vote.
Yeah, which is interesting. It is also interesting to see that the candidate that was eliminated from this race was more further right. So the 0.5% of the vote that was given to him that will now be redistributed will most likely be in favor of Erdogan.
Yes, most likely. Charlie, why do you think this Turkish election is so important, besides just obviously the rising authoritarian tendencies of Erdogan?
Well, I think it is important because of NATO. The thing going on between Turkey and Sweden is really something that Erdogan has been focusing on, and I think it is interesting to show that he is this big authoritarian guy. He's standing up to the U.S. by not allowing Sweden to join NATO because of the Kurdish population in Sweden with the Kurdish political party that is there. So he is kind of trying to portray himself as this macho guy who's standing up to the West, especially to the U.S., which
Yeah,
I think is interesting.
and Turkey, unless I'm mistaken, is one of the biggest democracies in Europe.
Yes, they are.
So I think pretty consequential for the future just of European stability as a whole, not to mention the stability of NATO, which Turkey is one of the, I believe, now 31 members of.
Yes, 31, hopefully 32 if Sweden eventually gets in.
Yeah, and that's actually a great lead to talking about what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, because the Ukrainian counteroffensive is happening.
Yeah, it is really interesting. It is very hard to tell if they are indeed doing this, but it appears that yes, it is finally getting going. And of course, as we always say, we will get more when the actually happens, when there are actual results from this offensive.
It does seem like they're gaining some land. Also, I believe still unconfirmed reports that a Russian air defense system actually did shoot down a missile, so congratulations to them. It's just kind of unfortunate that it was their own missile.
I mean, at least they hit something,
At least they hit something.
which they
It,
generally don't tend to do.
yeah, hey, at least it works, just not in the way that they intended it to.
Yeah. All right, now let's move on to Charlie's stat of the week. As you remember, we
Hi,
brought
I'm
this
Morris,
back.
producer. I'm interrupting Charlie. I'm actually going to share a funny thing that's happening on Twitter right now. FTX is, not FTX, Moskowitz law firm is suing Tom Nash, a YouTuber, for crypto scam stuff, and through a court order signed by a judge in the Southern District of Florida court system, they served him the lawsuit via Twitter, which is incredibly funny. But he's one of the 10 defendants. He was one of the 10 defendants in a lawsuit against crypto influencers, including Ben Armstrong, aka BitBoy Crypto, and Brian Hung. The lawsuit alleges the influencers are promoting FTX without disclosures, and it's crazy because this is the first time in history that social media has been used to serve a lawsuit, which opens the doors for anyone to be sued. Incredibly easy, and as long as you're on the platform, it's considered being you've notified, even if you haven't actually seen the tweet, as long as you were addressed in the tweet or other post, because I mean, there's not really a way to miss it, and so it becomes public information, it's assumed that you've seen it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is quite funny, but I think that yeah, you nailed it. There are actually some big future legal implications with that, Charlie.
Yeah, there definitely is. It is interesting to see if this will eventually become a actual consistently used way of delivering lawsuits.
I mean, at the moment, it's required, like it's an alternate form, so it does require a judge to sign off on it. But we'll see. I mean, eventually, in the future, we could see a court happening in VR, like in the metaverse, and people serving
Lawsuit
lawsuits.
NFT, let's go.
Yeah,
For sure.
no, and it's interesting because people try to avoid lawsuits. I mean, Jenna Ellis, we're talking about Rudy Giuliani earlier, the associate of Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, she's been basically on the run avoiding a lawsuit for the last several months. She has a Twitter account. If that could that in theory be used?
I think
Maybe
it
not in this
can.
case, but
I
generally,
think it might be.
could.
I think we also got to see how this plays out before more courts authorize it. But it's funny because the tweet itself is at I am Tom Nash. Per the authorization of the court presiding over the pending class action against you in the Southern District of Florida, you have been served.
Yeah, no, it's really funny. Thank you for that nugget, Morris. Charlie, do you have an actual thing of the week now, or are we going to move on?
Let's just move on. We've used up too much time. Just a
All
reminder,
right.
you're listening to the C&C Talks podcast. Thank you for listening. Let's get to sports.
Yeah, and we're going to start with the NBA playoffs, and I know that Charlie has something that he'd like to say to me to talk about the results, but before I let him do that, Charlie, don't get too excited because you root for the Hornets.
I do. I like them for some reason.
All right, you're free to roast me now, even though I
All
don't see
right.
why I'm deserving of being roasted.
Man, okay, I'll tell you. Because my team, I know is bad, and I expect them to be bad. Your dynasty is over, Colin. Your team is finally going to collapse, and it's about time. We finally get to see some other teams come out of the West. Thank you,
Like the
finally.
Lakers and the Suns.
Yeah, like the Lakers and the Suns.
We just
who,
saw that a
one
couple
of
years
them was in
ago.
a weird pandemic bubble that really was weird and didn't make a lot of sense, and the other one was a genuinely good team that had an opportunity to do really well. Once.
Yeah, okay. Fair
One
enough.
year.
Okay, can I speak on the Warriors real quick?
Go ahead.
There are a total of exactly 5 people on this year's Warriors team who should 100% be on the roster next year. That's Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney, and Gary Payton II. That's it. Klay Thompson, would I like him back? Sure, but you shouldn't guarantee it. He was awful in the postseason. He had a decent regular season, was absolutely atrocious in the postseason. Jordan Poole should probably not be on this team next year. If they want any hope of actually keeping their championship window open, they need to they need to improve the supporting cast. The starters are fine for the most part. You have to improve the starting cast.
Yes, they do. More
All right,
NBA news now.
Let's
This
talk
time-
about Phoenix. Let's do it.
Phoenix did eventually lose to Denver, as many people did expect. That
They
series
didn't
was
just lose, Charlie.
They got annihilated.
It was 2022 all over again.
It was. And, interesting enough, Kevin Durant still hasn't won a championship without the Warriors.
Yeah, so I can still gloat about that. What needs to change in Phoenix? They fired their head coach, but Booker and Durant are obviously a legit duo. Should Ayton be on this team next year? Should Chris Paul be on this team next year?
I would say yes. I think they had a difficult stretch. Chris Paul, of course, getting injured. Aiden playing not very well. But I do think they deserve to be on this team. And I think the key for them moving forward is they gave a lot of depth and a lot of quality players away in the Durant trade. I think they need to rebuild that support cast around those 4 big players.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up an interesting point because they had 4 stars, frankly. That's what it is. They had 4 legit stars.
And then absolutely nothing else.
Yeah, and then no one else. Like, where was the supporting talent? It didn't exist. It's been 2 years in a row that Ayton seems to have completely given up on the team in the postseason. I'm looking to move on from him if I'm the Suns and maybe trade him for some role players.
You could potentially trade him for some depth. I could see that working.
Who wants him?
Yeah, that's the question. This is why we need to bring this Supersonics back. Let's go.
Let's do it. Come on, NBA. It is long past time. It is long past time. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, the Knicks and the Heat, Charlie.
Man, I'm sorry, New York. You deserve better. That series was a disaster.
It is really, really, really hard to win 1 playoff game, let alone 4, when Jalen Brunson is your only good player. And that is not a knock on Jalen Brunson in any way. He has been awesome all year. I am very high on what he did this year and what he can do next year. That is a knock on everybody else, especially Julius Randle.
Oh, what a horrible series he had.
A disaster. Now, the Heat. Charlie, talk about the Heat.
I have them going to the finals.
You have them beating Boston.
I do. It's what this team has done. I don't think anyone in the NBA except for Nikola Jokic can stop Jimmy Butler.
What Jimmy Butler has done this postseason is something special. unbelievably special.
Amazing.
And then that final semifinal or conference semifinal series, that was Boston and Philadelphia. Boston coming out on top in 7 games.
In a big
Another
game
really
7.
disappointing year for Philly.
Yeah, they did. In games that James Harden played badly, that team just was gone.
Joel Embiid was not good. Like, at all.
No, he had a terrible series.
He is now the only MVP in NBA history to never make the conference finals.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
So what needs to change for them? Is it really just Embiid playing better in the postseason? Because we don't know if Harden's going to be there next year. We don't know if Doc Rivers, their coach, is going to be there next year, and we don't know if he should be.
I think that they have the exact same problem as the Suns do.
Not enough supporting talent?
They have 2 really good players and nothing else.
Yeah, that's basically also what Embiid said in his post-game press conference. Did you like him saying that, though? It feels like he was deflecting the blame.
Yeah, I do feel like he was a little bit. Yeah, just another really bad season for Phil. This has not been a good year to be a Philadelphia sports fan.
Well, to be fair, they've had 2 teams in championships. That's not bad,
Of
Charlie.
which they lost both.
I'd still rather that the Kraken. Well, we'll get to them in a minute. I'd still rather them have made the Stanley Cup Finals and lost it than them getting eliminated in the second round.
Okay, but they're a brand new team. They did everything they could.
Sure.
Speaking of which, let's move on to that. Unfortunately for us, the Kraken are out of the playoffs. They lost Game 7 tonight as of Monday against the Stars in Dallas 2-1. But what a season!
What a season for the Kraken. I don't think anyone had them being a winning team this year, yet alone making the playoffs or getting to the second round or taking that to Game 7. And you know what? They almost won Game 7.
Yeah, it was surprisingly close.
It was surprisingly close. Dallas clearly the better team. They were clearly the better team all series. But Philip Grubauer, man, an all-time performance tonight.
Can we sign that guy to the maximum possible contract?
Yeah, no, the Kraken, they will be back. As for Dallas, that's a darn good team right now. They're playing Vegas, another darn good team. That should be a really good Western Conference final. The East, another surprising team from Miami. That would be the Florida Panthers. Got past Boston. They've got past Toronto now. And then they're playing Carolina, who, I don't know, they just keep doing it.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's going to be a good
It'll
Final
be really
Four.
interesting to see.
What are your predictions for that?
Every time I make a prediction, it goes horribly, so I'm not even going to try anymore.
All right. Vegas versus Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals. Florida wins.
All right, I'll just do the opposite of what you did. I'll take Carolina and Dallas. Give me Carolina.
Okay. Talk about John Morant switching back to the NBA real quick, Charlie.
Can this guy put the gun down? That's all I'm going to say.
Okay,
Apparently not.
His talent is amazing. He is an all-time talent, but he can't stop getting himself into trouble.
But I will say
that's what it is.
Something that I do think is interesting, though, is what exactly was the thing that he did? Did he just bring a gun out?
He flashed a gun on Instagram Live, but he knew he was on camera.
But something that I don't understand is in a lot of U.S. states, that is perfectly allowed. So why does the team allowed to suspend him for something that you can usually do in some states?
Well, but Charlie, you can be fired from work without committing a crime.
That is a very good point.
Right? It's considered conduct that is not fitting. He does not. They don't want him representing the team right now.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. And this is a team decision, not a league decision. Is that correct?
Yes. Now it's pending league review, but Adam Silver may actually suspend. There's talks that, according to ESPN, there's talks that the NBA might suspend Morant for the entire season next year.
And how devastating that would be to a Grizzlies team that needs everything they can get right now.
The Grizzlies, to the extent that they had a championship window, I kind of feel like it's over.
Well, it was over as soon as it started because John Morant was their entire team.
Well, and Dylan Brooks existed.
Dylan Brooks existed and then got deleted.
And he'll be on the Shanghai Sharks next year for sure.
Yes, he will. Let's end by talking about some baseball. We are finally 40 games into the season. So, what are you seeing from some teams around the league?
It's been a fascinating start to the year. A lot of teams really close to 500. The AL East, we knew it was going to be good. It's really good, especially the Orioles and the Rays. It looks sustainable to me. That's the thing. It looks sustainable.
3 of these teams to me look sustainable, and that's Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and Toronto.
The Red Sox aren't.
The Red Sox are absolutely not, and I don't think the Yankees can keep it holding it together.
Okay, so we said this before the season. The Yankees starting pitching is injured enough that they have to rely on a bad offense to carry them. They had Jake Bauers leading off the other day, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and as continuing the tradition of, I don't know why they do this, the AL Central is awful again.
It's pretty pathetic.
The team in second place is 2 games under 500.
Is that still the Detroit Tigers?
No, it is the Cleveland Guardians.
The Guardians are back in that spot.
The Tigers are in third.
Yeah, I like the Twins right now, though. I think that Correa seems to be a mistake, but I do like how the Twins are built. If that team can stay healthy, I think that they could definitely go places. AL West also fascinating because you've really got 4 teams that really are up there, and I don't know what to make of. Definitely don't know what to make of the Rangers. The Angels exist, and the Astros, I think that they could go on a run if they get healthy, but the Mariners, their starting pitching, Charlie, is so good that if their offense could perform even close to what every player on that team is capable of, then they will not only go to the postseason, they will not only win the American League West, they will go to the postseason as the World Series favorite.
Looking at this team, I can see the wheel starting to chug.
Oh no, they definitely looked better recently.
And I am telling you right now, this is a statement that I'll make for the rest of the season. This team, as soon as it gets moving, will be unstoppable. As soon as this team starts clicking on all cylinders, which they will, the teams in this league can only keep this team down for as long as they can. And as soon as there's one spark, this season's over. I think the Mariners are going to just go insane.
This team is too talented. Their pitching
Look at this team.
Their pitching is otherworldly.
Julio Rodriguez, Teoscar Hernandez, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. And even when they have pitching concerns with Robbie Ray, they call up Miller, who's been absolutely crazy.
Andres Munoz has been injured since the second week of the season, Charlie. And their bullpen is like the best in baseball right now. And that's with Matt Brash sucking. You know what? Did anybody think that Trevor Gott, Gabe Spire, or Justin Topa would be anything? No, they didn't. And yet they all have ERAs of what? 1 or less?
Yeah, I think so.
This is ridiculous. The Mariners pitching is wild.
It's relatively unbelievable, to be honest.
George Kirby is an absolute freaking star who could legitimately win the Cy Young Award this year.
He might, and I think he might be deserving of it, too.
And Luis Castillo, you remember that guy? The guy who went into the 8th inning in a wild card game last year? That guy?
He is chugging.
He is... No, that is not what I was going to say. He's doing well, but he might be the Mariners' 4th best starter right now.
This season so far...
And Robbie Ray's injured.
...has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the offense just hasn't clicked yet. But Jared Kelenic has. He's broken out. He's arrived.
the interesting thing, looking at this team, I think France is going to start going.
He
Julio needs
is
to get
already. He's on what, a
Julio,
12-game hit streak, I think, as of this
Julio
taping.
needs to get out of the slump he's in a little bit.
He's starting to.
Kelnick is on fire.
J.P. Crawford's doing
Crawford's
amazing
doing
things.
amazing. Trammell is really clutch all of a sudden. Caballero's looked good, and all of a sudden,
Long is starting to hit.
Here comes Big Dumper.
Yeah, Big Dumper. As of this taping, he just Monday night he hit 2 home runs,
and we
Fenway.
obliterated the Red Sox.
Yeah, this is a very dangerous baseball team.
And then there's the A's.
Okay, well, actually, this is what needs to be talked about with the A's, is that their Vegas ballpark plans are blowing up right now. It's going very badly.
They can't do anything.
They just purchased a new, I now understand why they're so incompetent on the baseball field. It's because they're incompetent off of it too. They're trying to now buy their second stadium in Vegas, and it might be failing there too. It's only going to hold 30,000 people. For a baseball stadium, that's tiny. 30,000.
Now let's look at the NL, and the question that I have here is, what happened? This is weird. This entire league is weirdly stuck in 8 games between 500 for basically the entire league. There's no truly awful team in this entire league.
Yeah, I mean, there's teams that you can clearly tell already are going nowhere. Hi Rockies, but
hi Cardinals.
The Cardinals have looked better recently, have they not though?
Yes, but they're 17-25.
I mean, fair enough.
So I think
the Brewers look good. The Cubs actually look okay. The Pirates slowing down. The Reds are.
Is it fair to say that I think the biggest surprise so far this season has been the Arizona Diamondbacks?
I kind of thought that they would be okay. They're doing better than I thought. I think it's sustainable. I'm more surprised about the Mets right now.
Oh, don't get me started. They are in jeopardy of being in last place.
Are the Marlins better than them? They are.
The Marlins
right?
are 1 game in front of them.
Yeah. So what's the exact standings for that division right now? It's the Braves on top, right?
The Braves are 26-15. The Phillies are 20 I believe this is as of Monday at noon. The Braves are 26-15. The Phillies are 20-20. The Marlins are 20-21. The Mets are 20-22, and the Nationals are 18-23. But they have a series against the Mets, and they nuked the Mets in Game 1.
Yeah, no, it's bad what's going on in New York right now.
The team that I believe has the highest payroll in the league is in jeopardy of a month and a half into the season being dead last with no hope of getting better.
Yeah, can we just really quickly talk about New York sports?
Gladly.
Okay, let's start with baseball. Okay, the Mets are going nowhere. I'm sorry, they're not. They're going nowhere. I'm sorry, New York fans. I know you had such high expectations. It's time to concede that the Mets are going absolutely nowhere. The Yankees, we just talked about them. They're not good enough. And why you thought that they were good enough, I don't know. The Jets, it's not happening.
No, this team's gonna win 9 games.
They're maybe getting a playoff spot, maybe, and then they're gonna get knocked out by the Bengals or the Chiefs or whatever in the first round.
Or the Bills or the Jaguars.
Literally any of these teams is better than them. The Giants, I mean,
the Giants are good.
Yes, but they also have another 3rd place coming, right? It's obvious. And 3rd place might not be enough to get you into the wild card this year.
The Knicks can just never do anything right. The Nets
the Nets are.
The Nets went from unstoppable to terrible.
Yeah, the Islanders and the Rangers are facing some serious questions. Let me just say this, New York. When the Knicks are your best team at the moment, you have a really big problem.
You're forgetting about someone.
Who?
The Bills.
Oh, I'm talking about New York City.
Okay, I was gonna say at least upstate has some hope.
Oh yeah, no, upstate New York's fine. I'm talking about New York City. It's a disaster.
Indeed it is. Looks like we're out of time for this episode. So, Colin, care to lead us off?
Sure, yeah. Make sure you subscribe to the C&C Talks podcast. We have episodes coming out every single Wednesday wherever you listen to podcasts. All that information and more is on our website, cctalks.net. You can also call us with your questions, 360-389-2630, and follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. For our producer Morris, our production designer Zack, and our proof editor Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. See you next week. Thank you, everybody.